So the House settlement coming out, is a ruling that's going to allow the player or the schools to pay players directly for good services rendered, for lack of a better term, and create also a clearinghouse within the NCAA or of NCAA schools that are going to review the market value for NIL deals overall. It's going to create some scholarship limits and some scholarship levels, and some roster limits and levels for each program. I am not a lawyer or a legal expert. I know college athletics, and I know what I've heard from smarter people share. And a couple of things that really like flag for me in this is like the first thing, I don't know how this enforcement clearinghouse is going to ever be effective. It seems wild to me that the NCAA, that has been sued into oblivion over the last several years, thinks that this is going to fly, because as soon as the clearinghouse says that, oh, this is not fair market value, like how do you determine what's fair market value for somebody in the value that they want to pay somebody? You can't. It is literally a moving target that you can't pay, because fair market value is just kind of what people say it is in the system that we're currently using. So that's going to be interesting for me to see. I also am curious about what the allowances for full scholarships for other sports, baseball and all of that. Other schools. I think Texas is not going to be a school that has an issue with this. Texas, the richest, college athletics program in the country. And obviously Texas has the opportunity to meet all of those needs for student athletes. I love it for the student athletes. If this doesn't have the massive negative impact that something it will on the non-revenue, and especially the Olympic sports. I think, the United States is one of the only countries of our size that doesn't have like a ministry of sport that is helping oversee a lot of these international competition. And let's be honest, like you and I, we both love watching international sports. We love cheering USA during the Olympics, during the World Cup. We always watch. I watch the medal counts. I'm always cheering for the US when it comes to international sports. And this is going to potentially have a negative impact on development in those areas, track and field, swimming, all of those gymnastics, all those non-revenue sports that are propped up by some of what, football and basketball to a lesser degree do for these schools. And so I'm curious to see how that plays itself out, because Texas, when the football was bad, the Olympic sports carried the athletic department for a very long time: volleyball, swimming, golf, rowing, those types of things. So for Texas, Texas is not going to have the monetary issues that some smaller schools do. Also, Title IX is going to get really weird depending on how things go and payments, and how teams, athletic departments have to restructure based upon the necessary payments to players. So I don't know if it solves anything. I think it just creates a new slate of problems, but I'm glad that we're inching closer to, the logical agreement for this with, student athletes as employees of the university.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is a step in the right direction. 20.5 million, if you guys didn't know, is the number for all sports. That's how it's going to be divided. Most schools, I think, are going to probably spend 17 to 19 million dollars on football, and the rest of it's going to go to every other sport. You might have some schools that do a little bit less. I could see Texas doing like 16 million, because that's the thing too. I think Austin has its advantages now. It's not a smaller city anymore. It's a pretty big city. And I think what you're going to see now is relying on the community and other businesses to support NIL. And I think that's how it should have been from the beginning. If this stays, again, this is all if, because this could and probably will get sued into oblivion is my guess. But we'll have to find out and wait for that. But that is how, in my opinion, NIL should work. And I agree. The biggest thing is that fair market value thing, because I don't know how you determine that. Maybe they go, hey, this guy is top 5 in your position, kind of like a franchise tag in the NFL. When someone gets franchised, I think they take the average of the top 10 highest paid at that position. Maybe that's how it works. Hey, these guys have the top 10 highest paid at your position, and you're making this, you can only make this. Maybe that's how it goes. I don't know. But I do agree. I think I've never liked the boosters just straight up, giving money. I've never been a fan of that. So I'm cool with that. This is kind of like a soft cap is how I look at it. And then Austin and hopefully the dealerships, the community and the businesses in the surrounding area will help out with NIL and stuff like that. And we won't really miss a beat. I will say this: smaller places are going to it's going to be a big deal. Like, think about Athens is not that big. Athens, Georgia is not, so they're going to have to go to Atlanta for that. And maybe with Georgia Tech there, Georgia Tech becomes a bigger NIL powerhouse because of that. and Georgia. Maybe we'll have to see. That's going to be very interesting to look at things like that. Norman is not a big city, guys, a very small city. How does that affect Oklahoma? I have no idea. Do they have enough businesses to support their football team, their basketball team, their baseball team, and so on and so forth? So stuff like that's going to be very interesting. Any deal, again, over $600 has to be looked at, which is who's going to be the first person to create a company and pay 50 deals of $599? Let's take bets on that because that's going to happen. Someone's going to create a BS company, funnel money through it, and say, this guy signed a deal for 50 deals for $599.
Well, and I think you've got a point there, right? You're joking, but like, college football for years and years was a dark money industry, right? I've said it on record on multiple occasions. I parked in the same parking structure as student athletes at the University of Texas, and I saw $100 handshakes go down. I probably shouldn't say that on a live stream, but I saw it happen. I'm not going to say who or when, but I saw it happen, right? And so ultimately, like, we're kind of going to try to push, I think, some of that back to this dark money industry where people are going to be paying, a player from 5 different companies multiple contracts of $500 or whatever it might be to make that gap. I do love the idea of getting back to true NIL. I love getting back to that of like the example I always think of. If you follow Jordan Whittington on Instagram, go back a few years when he was still on campus, and like the dude was outside of a teeth whitening place posting a selfie next to the sign because they whitened his teeth for free, right? Or like you got a meal comped and he posts something outside of the restaurant. Like I love the idea of like true NIL like being the focus of this, because ultimately I think that the combination of collectives and the unlimited transfer rule is creating a pretty toxic environment for college football. So I hope this is a step back to, I'm not saying I don't want the players to get paid.
Yeah.
I have long been on record saying that players deserve fair market value. It is a $1 billion industry. And up until 5 years ago, they weren't seeing any of that above the table. So that is not what I'm saying. But I think getting back to the true spirit of what NIL was for, I don't love the collective situation. I think that's still going to happen. I think it's going to have to be a little bit smarter and a little bit different of how they're doing it. But ultimately, I think this is getting back to hopefully what NIL was supposed to be when it was signed into law a few years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think this all ends with collective bargaining. I mean, every other sport has this at professional level. Let's just not pretend this is a professional sport basically now. It's basically like a junior NFL. And I think it's kind of needed because I agree. I don't mind players making money from what they do at the University of Texas. I mind it when they're coming out of high school and getting $1 million because Texas wants them there. And guess what? If they bust guys, they got that $1 million and they provided nothing for the university. Or if they do something amazing, guess what they're going to do? They're going to ask for a raise. So it's kind of one-sided now. And we see this in the opposite in professional sports. It's usually more one-sided towards the owners. Right now, it's way more one-sided towards the players. And we've seen that balance. 10 years ago, everyone over here, other than the players, had control. Now all the players have control and the institutions have no control.
Yeah, and I think it's impossible to strike the perfect balance because I think every CBA you see in every major sport, the pendulum swings in the opposite direction. One CBA, it's the coaches. One CBA, it's the players, and back and forth. And so again, I think the players, the NCAA kind of just took all of the guardrails off. I have 3 small kids. Like if I just open the door and let my kids run in the street, like somebody's going to get hit by a car. And that's kind of what the NCAA did with NIL. Like they dropped the transfer, they changed the transfer rules, they changed the NIL rules, and we're just like, hey, we're just throwing our hands up and you're going to let y'all figure it out. We'll let the market dictate it. And I do think that the market was correcting a bit with some of these things. I do think that, these crazy deals that some kids were getting were probably going to go by the wayside, or at least get a little bit more normalized. But hopefully this again gets us back to true NIL. And Texas, I think for Texas specifically, I don't think Texas is going to have any trouble getting the true NIL thing. You got players driving around in Porsches and brand new F-150s and all of those things, in Maseratis and whatever it might be. So Texas is not going to have any issue with players really being like in the true NIL space. Again, the big curiosity for me, how long does this clearinghouse last? And I think I'm putting my over under like 6 months. I think they're going to get sued pretty quickly. Again, I don't know what fan base it'll be, but there are many very litigious athletic organizations out there, and I think this clearinghouse won't be long for the world.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think you'll see now, like we said, go back to the old NIL and the dark money ways, but also what it was supposed to be where, hey, if this guy got that Lamborghini, he's probably going to be seen on a Lamborghini ad in Austin
Yep.
now, which that's how it should work. It shouldn't be, here's your
Yeah.
Lamborghini, go have fun, play at Texas. It should be, he got this Lamborghini because he shot an ad for us and he plays at the University of Texas. That's how it should work. Just like you see the professional athletes, they shoot an ad for New Balance. They have New Balance shoes. They also play their sport. They get paid both ways. It works out. That's how it should work at the University of Texas as well. And I feel good for like the guys on the roster, like the 75th best guy on the roster, because now, hey, they get a cut of this money. They're happy about this. The top guys, the top 5 to 10 of them probably don't love it, but the majority of the roster does like it.
And those top 5 or 10 guys are going to get taken care of by, again, Ferrari of Austin or whatever, whatever car dealership or whatever, local businesses. Quinn Ewers was doing like law commercials, 44444, right? So like they're going to get taken care of regardless. So I'm again, it's going to be fine at Texas. I'm curious about the Olympic sports in other small, like Stanford is a school that's really gone all in on Olympic sports rather than football. And so I'm curious to see how schools like that really deal with that. But again, it's an ever-changing landscape. And again, this will probably only last like 3 years and then something else will come up and it'll change.
Well, it's interesting with Stanford too, because I could see them just completely ignoring their football team and paying the majority to their Olympic sports. I don't know if they're ever going to compete at a high level in football. So why not just go all in on Olympic sports?
Yeah, it's good. They are very much all in on Olympic sports already. So how much farther can they go in? I think is the question.
Yeah, a school, I think someone said on a podcast, Iowa State may not be able to survive, and that would suck, like schools like that, because they probably don't have the money to pay this each and every year and stay and keep up with the Joneses per se. So that's going to be interesting, and that would be obviously that would suck, because that's what those schools like that are what differentiate college from the NFL. So I would have an issue with that if it kills them.
100%.
So what does the House settlement mean for Texas? In short, for Texas, not really worried about it. Top 15, 20 brands in college football don't have to worry. Everyone else, it's going to be pretty interesting how this comes out.